tell you a story. In the beginning, there was nothing. Nothing but the silence of an infinite darkness. And the Creator made man, and by his side woman. He gave them a choice. Follow the temptation of darkness, or hold on to the blessing of light. They ate from the forbidden fruit. Their innocence was extinguished. We broke the world. We did this. Man did this. Everything that was beautiful, everything that was good, we shattered.
Here we are in Toronto when the release of the newest album, Metanoia, and it seems like it's a really, really deeply personal album, much more so than the others that you've done.
Yeah.
Was it cathartic, or was it difficult?
It was actually the most cathartic record I've ever done. In fact, cathartic's maybe not the right word. It was the most relaxed record I've ever done. A couple of years before that, I'd been through a period of depression and chronic insomnia, and
Which you widely talked about on your blog.
Yeah. And so the record was a sort of manifestation of the recovery. You know, it was the marking point of not the end, but the coming out of a really dark period.
Yes.
And it was actually a relief to be able to make music again, because I was convinced for a long time that music was my enemy. It was hurting me, and it was too much of a psychological roller coaster to go through again to make that kind of music. And, so the album was a relief. It was getting back to doing what I love, and doing it, embracing it fully.
Yeah.
Not fighting it, not just saying yes to it. And once I had been through that period, I realized that music was totally nourishing, and that album totally nourished me. Mm-hmm. Which is, I think that's why it's different from the others, because I had a lot of stress making the other albums. I think I just didn't really know what was wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
and finding out, putting a name to it, and also having a long rest and recovery really helped me.
Because I think you've got a quote from you here. I've got a quote right from your website. You said you felt music was hurting me. You had to reprogram yourself and to work in a different way.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you put too much, or maybe past tense, you did put too much of yourself into your music?
Yeah. Definitely in the sense of forcing myself to in a very stressful way to try and perfect things as much as possible, and that would cause a lot of stress. And the irony of that sort of A-type perfectionism is that you kind of lose yourself in the process. You also lose vision as well, and you don't realize that if you just back off a bit, you'd get pretty much the same result in a much more relaxed manner, because it's still you know. So basically I was making records like I always would, but with a lot of stress and perfectionism on top of that. And that's, what was the question again? Sorry, what was the question? It was we're just trailing off there.
I think I can make something work with that for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is something actually I've asked a lot of musicians before, is can you actually hear a melody or a song in your head and then you're just transcribing, you're just creating what you hear, or do you just play around with sounds and then that's how things begin?
I hear it all in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those, it's like having, as Lou Reed said, having a radio in your head you can't turn off.
Yeah.
That's a negative way to look at it. You can also look at it as I've got a radio in my head.
Yeah,
I can't turn it off.
Possibilities.
Yeah. So with me, it was always on every level, whether it be production or melodies or lyrics, or it would very much be constructed in my head.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of experimentation when I get there. I mean, but I'm very mentally prepared for what I have to do when I get to the computer.
Yeah.
I say, okay, I need that sound, and I know how to get to that sound, and I can pretty quickly get to that sound.
Mm-hmm.
Which has, I think, in some ways, has made me quite impatient, because I end up knowing that I can get things quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of my failures, if I was to look at it negatively, was that I don't experiment enough, or I don't give myself enough time to explore certain things.
Yeah. Do you always start the same way? Like you start always with a drum loop, you start with a bass line? Is there a working method you like?
In fact, 80% of the time I start with a guitar, and I've always done that.
Yeah.
Or a piano.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm feeling that it's not necessarily a song that is going to translate so well into a traditional instrument, then I'll take it to another level and experiment with beats and make it a production song.
Yeah.
But they all become production songs, you know.
Sure.
I just love to play with that, and that's half of my psyche, is the technical side.
Yeah. Are you an analog guy? Are you a hardware guy? Are you a software guy?
I'm an anything guy.
Yeah.
I'm a what works guy.
Yeah.
And I've never. I think I prefer the warmth of analog.
Yeah.
I think I've always felt that there's just more scope and more subtlety in analog sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the kind of thing that I always associate digital with a very specific character, where I feel like I can really manipulate analog sounds into much more of an organic human feeling than I can with digital. But saying that, I don't. If it's a tool, it's a tool to make music, and I don't really care. In fact, I'll use absolutely anything, and a lot of the time, I've gone to analog basically simply because of the practical sort of simplicity of the big knobs.
Yeah.
And I still associate, because I grew up in an era where you still associate touch with sound.
Sure.
And analog, I still see it in that way. You know,
Yeah.
I want to turn that filter knob and I want to turn
Yeah.
the resonance. And I think that's how we're built. You know, we're built to use our hands still, and I don't know if we've, even people growing up without analog, I still think they want to touch things. Yeah.
Oh, with this latest album, what was some of the gear that you used for it? Could perhaps divulge some of your secrets?
Quite simple stuff.
Yeah.
I start with very basic software. In fact, I used a lot of free software.
Oh, yeah.
in the beginning. So what I'll do is I'll build up sort of structures and sequences with, let's say, synth sequences or bass sequences with something like a free towel,
or something.
towel, yeah, or something that has a little a simple arp or something in there, and a lot of the manipulation, a lot of the character in the sound comes from manipulation afterwards, not necessarily in the synth itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll add distortion and maybe some quirky pitch effects or like a pitch shift or something, automated pitch shift in doing odd detune things with that. Reverbs on top of that, maybe kind of, you know, either compressing it so that you get reverb breathing out the sound, side chaining it to the bass drum or whatever, things like that. But quite simple stuff. I'm not necessarily exploring a lot of like either granular synthesis or something where it's very, very in depth. I'll take something like Omnisphere, which I love, because the reason why I love it is because in the end I'm a person that wants to make a song work quite quickly. Yes. So Omnisphere has a huge palette of sounds.
A bit too big, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit too big, but really it is a bit too big, I'd have to say. If it was half as big, I think, you know, you could get things a bit easier, because you end up, you know just using the first songs, but I do find that does give me like a quick inspiration that I can then manipulate. Because I will never use a simple preset. It's just not in my nature.
Do you use samplers a lot?
I used to, but
your sound doesn't sound that you do. It seems like you just create your own sounds with synthesizers rather than samples.
Yeah, I used to sample more, but I just sort of working on an indie level. I would just get into this conundrum of, okay, do I say fuck it? I'm just gonna rip off all of this shit and manipulate it and make it my own, and take the chance that somebody's gonna hear it and sue me.
Yes.
Or do I just make my own? And I ended up just getting a bit not arrogant. What's the word? Just confident that I would always be able to make my own atmospheric loops. So I experimented a lot with that, a lot with pitching vocals and sort of effects and reverbs and delays and changing, adding a little bit of crackle and shit like that, you know, the little tricks, but really making it my own rather than something.
Something I noticed more on this album than any of the other previous work is you use a lot more arpeggiators and step sequencers, it sounds like, than you've ever done before. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think I decided to go more, in my mind, more electronic in terms of, more obviously electronic. So I've always made records in a similar way, but I just wanted to be a bit more purist about it and say, okay, this is a synthesizer, you're listening to a synthesizer, you're listening to a sequencer, and this is how it's going to drive the track, and I'm not going to have to worry too much about what weird sound do I bring in there, what do I do here, what organic kind of sound can I bring in that I can manipulate, that takes you into a different realm. So I wanted to keep it in the realm of electronica much more. And
did you use software sequencers, or software arpeggiators, or hardware?
I used a lot of it. I'll have a simple thing like the towel thing with a sequence, and I'll set it going and do it old style with fingers and find the right sort of patterns from that.
Yes.
I think that's the best way for me, because I'm still working in melodies, and Step time, I'm a little bit. It's the impatience thing. I'm not really really good with that. So a lot of the stuff it will be still quite a musical approach, as opposed to a technical approach. So, I mean, technical. What's the right word for that? It's melodic. It's based. I want to get the best melody out of that sequence. Obviously, I want to get the best rhythm out of it as well. But that's basically how I'll start. I'll get a nice sort of arpeggiated sequence going as a basic loop. Usually, I would start with that, and then I would build up the maybe a layer of sub and bass below that, and some kind of simple rhythm tracks. I was trying to keep the drum sounds a bit simpler this time as well, in the more electronic realm and everything. I think it's something that I guess I was going back to the roots of the project, which is how I started on the first album, which was Kiss and Swallow, where it was very much one guy in a bedroom with his computer, and that's what I did with this one.
Excellent. Modular bug bitten yet?
I have a friend in LA who builds modular stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually a guy called Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy.
Skinny Puppy, yeah.
And I was not.
He's got a huge setup.
He's got a huge setup. I was not into it so much because I'd seen so many people just get totally immersed in it and actually not release records anymore. And that was, I didn't really want to get sucked into that world. So for me, I know that if I were, I'm very interested and I love that stuff, but I just don't feel I have the time to indulge my I feel like it's a luxury, and if I'm making a record and there's a plugin that can do the same thing, I'm going to go to that plugin because I know it's a beautiful thing to do that, but it's a luxury. So when I'm an old man, I think I'll do that. I'll sort of sit back and start collecting sort of modular thing. Or maybe I won't. I don't really know. I went to his studio and it was very inspiring, and but I could just see the amount of work that had gone into connecting all those parts, and just think I would never have the patience, I think.
Yeah. Interesting. Your live shows, your live versions of your songs are very different from the album versions. What do you do to go out preparing for a tour like this? How do you create your live versions of your songs?
It's trial and error. It's getting into the rehearsal room and seeing what translates and what doesn't translate. And if I have to simplify a beat, or if I have to change the bass sound or whatever, it doesn't always work. You can't just, you just can't take the record and play it live. It doesn't work like that. So a lot of it is just simplifying, cleaning up sounds, taking the reverbs off, putting a bit more sub on things, and what we'll do is I'll work like that for maybe 3 weeks, mixing tracks, and bring the band in. Then we mix the band I mix the band with the tracks, either with sequences or with backing tracks. And then the sound engineer comes in, and we spend 3 days in a club, and he'll say, "This sounds shit. Take that out. Turn the bass drum up." So it's a real sort of production line to get to that point, and even then you're never totally fully prepared, because every room's different. You go to a different room, and the bass is insane in one room, and it's nothing in another. But over time, it sort of evens out, and I try to tweak the tracks as we go along. I also do the visuals as well, which we have synced tracks live. So I'll manage to add sounds. If there's not enough dynamic in one track, I'll put another layer of synth in the chorus, like that, just tweak as we go along. And usually you get to the point where it works in most clubs.
Right. I guess you've done this enough times that you sort of do know what works.
Yeah, I think so. And then sometimes I'm really surprised how shit something sounds that I really thought was going to work, and other things don't. You can work on a track. I worked on a track for a week, and I thought it sounded incredible in the rehearsal room. We took it into a club, and it was just really thin. And another track that I thought sounded thin sounded huge. So it's a totally different experience mixing live. I never used to think it was. Before, when I was just working in the studio all the time, before I'd done a lot of live shows, I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy, you know?
Yeah.
What's the difference between live and studio? Now I know.
What are you using for your lives? Is everything completely live? Or are you playing to sequence tracks off of a computer?
It's a combination.
Yeah.
So we've got audio tracks, and I'm running. So we're syncing to two keyboard players as well, which are getting MTC, and they're syncing certain sequences to that. So I'll be running Logic Pro, which is the kind of the master. Then we have two keyboard players. One has a main stage setup, which is being synced as well, and I think she's purely main stage. Yeah, and the other keyboard player is using a base station and what's she got? Another Novation, which is kind of doing a lot of bass sounds and sort of gnarly, distorted sounds.
Are the sounds actually being generated from the base station?
Yes, yeah, she's doing all internal.
Base Station 2, the new one, yeah?
Yes, base station 2, yes, absolutely. And then an old fucked up Novation, I think XCO or something.
Yeah, XCO Synth or something.
Yeah, that's okay, but it's a bit complicated to program. And then I've got a very portable mini Brute.
Yep.
Which is great for touring because it's tiny and it's really, it's got some nice fat gritty sounds which I just push through a delay and do lots of feedback and stuff with that.
Yeah.
I have a little Volca keys which is also just doing sort of gnarly sounds.
Yeah.
And then we have a live drummer who's click to tracks. Kept that pretty simple this time, so he's not triggering any pads, he's just all live energy on top of the tracks.
Right.
And then I've got kind of a complicated vocal setup, which I have a little loop machine, which is what is it called? Shit, I've forgotten the name. But it's a Boss loop vocal loop machine, which is
RC something or other.
Yeah.
Another one you mean.
Which is synced to the track as well.
Yeah.
Which that means I can trigger sort of vocal loops when, and that's quite a nice little effect, and it has internal effects which I can play with. Then I'm going through a voice box, which is doing sort of pitch effects into another pitch shifter, which does intermittent pitch effects, so I can kind of do octaves and do
Eventide or?
No, that's just a basic Boss pedal.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. And so it's kind of a performance tool which I can switch on and off. That's got a delay and then into a really nice Big Sky.
Strymon,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's a lovely reverb. Yeah.
So then I play a lot with that. So I have two vocal mics. One is clean going to the front of the house.
Right.
The other one is going into my setup, which I just fuck with Jimmy
And just mix it in together.
Yeah. That's the basic setup.
Yeah. Does it change every night?
No. We're trying to simplify.
Yeah.
Used to be a bit more fluid and experimental with that, but it just got more and more loose, you know. So I think once we get into the rhythm, it's still early days.
Mhm.
We've only done a couple of weeks.
The second week, right?
Yeah. So I think after a month, we'll know how everything's working, and we can maybe add a few things, experiment a bit more.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's see. Did you play with Aphex Twin? I read somewhere that Sneaker Pimps way back in the day.
Yeah, we
played
did it. We did
Aphex
it
Twin.
too with Aphex Twin. Yeah.
What was he like?
He was fine.
Yeah.
Just a normal bloke. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. It was. I think it was. Yeah, it was America. We did like Vegas and a few different shows. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No castanets, oboes, or zither on this album.
Not on this album. No.
Because you're sort of known for use of exotic sort of instrumentation.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision to move away from that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the last two albums, or even the last 3 albums, I was adding a lot more traditional organic instruments
Yeah.
that just seemed right at the time. And with this one, I just didn't want to have the headache of actually the headache of collaboration. I think it was just I want to simplify everything in the box, most things in the box. I mean, I did experiment a little bit, but it was mainly vocal things with vocal loops and things like that. Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah.
I didn't record any instruments apart from the vocal. Everything else was manipulated in the box. So if you take a track like Wildest Wind, which is jazz piano, it was all sampled piano.
Yeah. Interesting. And I think also in this album, none of your usual, well, not usual, but somewhat known for your triplet beat, almost your pa.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I don't think there's any songs like that, are there? Whereas usually on every album previous to this, you've had at least one, if not 2 or 3 songs which feature that sort of driving, sort of dun, 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 you know, like President, of course, right?
Yeah.
You know, but was that also a constant? Because you've been known in the past to work in odd time signatures, right? Whereas it's all pretty 4/4.
It is
right?
pretty 4/4. Yeah. I wanted to. I think that was a conscious decision.
Yeah.
And maybe it was to bring it more into that sort of more consumable electronic realm, as opposed to doing it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
So it would be okay if the song needs that, then I'll do it. But I didn't. In the past, if I've taken something like President, or I want to do that weird thing, you know, I want to do that odd time signature, or I want to push this, or I want to push that. This time it was much more, okay, what feels right, what's coming up, what's just a much more relaxed way of working. I think also I was aware that, okay, well, I've kind of done that a few times, so I'd rather go for a more consumable way of doing things. There are a couple of tracks.
Although I really do love those.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do too. But they're there, you know. There's a couple of tracks that sort of reference that 3/4 or the 6/8 rhythm, and but it's not in that obvious on par way.
Yeah. There's one track on the background noise.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. I love. It's almost like an Eleanor Rigby sort of thing, where there's a story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you twist it on its head just a little bit, you know. And that is one of my favorite songs off the new album.
Thank you.
Really, I just love the whole feel of that one.
Yeah,
you know?
I like that one. I think that's one of the first things that I've written in that sort of story way.
Yeah.
It's actually it was inspired by my uncle who when I was sick, I went home and I spent a lot of time with him, and,
Yes.
and I could see that his life was kind of he was struggling with a lot of midlife issues. His kids had grown up. He had money. He has a wife that he doesn't really love. He's drinking every night. He's gone into this. He's done his work. He's made his family, and now he's sort of looking at himself.
Yeah.
And that really hit me, and I thought, oh, I've got to write something about not him specifically, but somebody in that way that everything on the face of it seems perfect, and that's what we all should be aspiring to. But in fact, that's not what happiness is, and there's all, we all know that. We all have this niggling voice.
Yeah.
That is not going to be solved by those what's the word? Trophies. And yeah, so it came pretty quickly, and I really enjoyed doing that, writing a little narrative about some fictional character.
Yeah. Actually, one more thing. The album was crowdfunded.
Yes.
You reached 214% of your original goal.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, was that quite moving that so many people around the world are supporting you?
It was very moving. I mean, we had done one before, we had a similar result. And the first time we did it, it was very nerve-wracking, because you live in a bubble. You don't think anybody really gives a shit in the end. I mean, you can come to shows, and I mean, I'm a bit of a self-doubter as well, so I would be thinking, why, who's going to buy this? Who's going to care enough to? Everybody downloads music now. Who's going to give a shit?
Yeah.
And it really was a testament to the fans and the subconscious of our fans, that, or maybe just music fans in general, that they do download for convenience, but they also do understand that art needs to be supported. Definitely independent art needs to be supported, otherwise it just won't survive. So it really was heartwarming to have that response. And actually it was life affirming, or project affirming. It really gave me the will to continue doing an underground project. Because as an artist, you're always fighting with trying to survive, get the money to survive, and it's very rare that you can actually do something so self-indulgent and survive.
Yeah, so the whole studio system's completely fallen apart now.
Yeah,
no one's paying for studio time anymore. Rent for your
You're
time
welcome.
today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It was a nice interview. Very interesting. History is it seems very very divided, and to me you have to find your niche and hang on to it for dear life, and really connect quite intimately with the people that are supporting you. There used to be this huge machine in between you and the fans, and now it's not there, and it's a real relief for me, because I hated that machine in a way. So the crowdfunding was really inspirational, and I think it's revolutionary, and it's the new way to do it. I mean, things will change, people will get bored of it,
Sure.
But in the end, it's the essence. It's the essence of. There's the artists, there's the fans.
Yeah, there's a direct.
How do we bring them together?
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.